Well, our son is very, well, I always say, oh, he whines and cries all the time. But we were constantly butting heads, I think. I don't know if we're too much alike or not, but he's only 5, so he's just little. And we just had a lot of issues with not cooperating with us. And anytime we'd ask him to get ready to go somewheres or what have you, he just wouldn't cooperate. He wouldn't help unless it was on his time frame, I guess, or when he wanted to do things. And we were just constantly like struggling and fighting, and I knew that there had to be a better way. You know, my children, or my son, I guess, would get so upset and freak out over the fact that I cut his sandwich in half instead of not cutting it in half, let's say, because that's what he wanted in that moment. Well, there was one day my husband was away, so I was with the kids all weekend by myself, which is fine, but I don't know if it was that because I had no help all weekend or what, but I got to the point where I just couldn't handle it anymore. He was seemed to be getting worse and worse, and it was just constant. It was never one happy moment all weekend, and near the end of the weekend, I was just to the point where, oh, I just so feel like I really dislike my son, and this is not good. I mean, not loving and liking your own flesh and blood, there's got to be something wrong when you feel this way. When you know it's not true, but you can't help it when you feel that way, because you're just, I don't know, it was like a breaking point. I was like, I can't do this anymore. We can't go on like this. We need to, something has to change. So I had to find somebody to help me get through that. Things started to change when I found you, of course, and we started working together on different strategies and ways to try to look at dealing with things. And I noticed that my son started not having his tantrums for as long, so they were shorter. They didn't last as long, the duration. I had more moments, not all the time, of course, and I had more moments where I was calmer during those moments and was thinking through stuff more so than just reacting in the moment. And so I guess, you know, by me learning to stay a bit more calm, I think was helping him stay more calm through these tantrums. So it just seemed like he was, because of all these different things, I think he was more willing. He seemed to be more willing to help out and be more receptive of getting ready when we needed to, not necessarily when he wanted to. It doesn't happen nearly as frequently. He cooperates much more often than he ever did, with a lot less badgering, if you will, or, you know, I only have to ask him a couple times and he'll help out. Like, for instance, getting ready to go somewhere, getting dressed and brushing his teeth. You know, he seems to be so much more willing, and I think it's just with all the things that, you know, with working with you and all the different things that you've helped me think about and work on, and with him and myself has really contributed to a lot of that. Oh gosh, I'm almost afraid to think of that. Think of where that would go. I would say we would still be in the same boat, maybe even worse, where like nobody's happy and everyone's screaming at each other and nothing's working. I just imagine that I'd be miserable, and probably he would be too, because we'd not be happy with each other very often. Well, having the one-on-one conversation with Alison really helped a lot, because I was able to really try my best to explain what was going on, and she had tons and tons of great little ideas, just super simple, easy to put in practice right away to try to make things better. Listen to Alison give suggestions on the videos, and some of them you would hear other people's comments. Was really, really helpful. And just knowing like that others are in the same boat, that I'm not alone. It's like, it's not just my son. There's so many other people that are going through pretty much the exact same thing. One thing that I guess, changed for me. I don't know if it's changed. Oh, I guess it's changed for me is that now that I know that there's a different way of parenting and dealing with these emotions and whatever comes up, because different things come up all the time with raising children, is I want everyone to know, like all my friends and family, like there's a better way of dealing with these things, and I want everybody to be on training with Alison. My daycare providers, you know, my friends, it's like, hey, go check out her site, sign up. I don't know, especially moms that I see that are stay-at-home moms that don't have as much support from their partner. Like, I have a lot of support with my partner, so I'm very lucky. And my mom is my daycare provider, and I'm constantly like, oh, here, like, try this, try that. You know, I'm far from a saint, but try this next time. You know, it's true that it takes a village to raise your kids, you know, and you want that village to be on the same page as you, probably a little differently. So he kind of reminds me sometimes to get back on track, which is nice. So, and we both try to stay on the same page as much as possible, but that's not always all the time either. So some is better than none. I've seen my 5-year-old son model some of the positive ways of dealing with frustration and anger. My son, before, when my 3-year-old would hit him out of frustration and anger, he would scream, and he may even lash out and hit her back and scream and be like, oh, so-and-so's hitting me, you know, and call out and ask for help from mommy or daddy. And now, just last week, I seen him model exactly what I do, and he didn't ask for help. She lashed out to hit him, and instead of him hitting her back and screaming and getting upset, he stayed calm, and he blocked her, kind of somewhat grabbed her hand or her arm, what have you, and said, you know, no hitting, we don't hit. And he kept kind of blocking her from hitting him, instead of hitting her back, instead of, you know, screaming and asking for help. He stayed calm and tried to handle it himself. Gets to a point when he goes to school, or he's somewhere where mommy and daddy is not present, and something like this happens, I know he knows how to handle it properly. Whether he chooses to will be a different story, because he's just learning. You know, we don't always choose to do the right thing, even though we know what the right thing is. But I would say what I'm most proud of is seeing the growth that I've made with helping my children deal with their emotions and things like that, and how I can see that's trickling down to them, and how they are learning to deal with their emotions. It's not always happening 24/7, but I see the changes in them, where sometimes they will be able to handle those big emotions, and, you know, we get through them quicker and faster and easier. And it's just, I can't imagine that not happening. Like, I'm so proud and happy that things are becoming easier and happier to deal with than they once were. And just that just keeps relating to the fact that I know I'm setting them up for success. And that's the biggest thing is as a parent, is we need to raise our children to be able to function on their own, without us having to tell them what they should be doing, that they need to be able to learn to make choices and decisions on their own as they grow, so that they can be a great parent their own someday. We used to have so much whining and crying in the house all the time, and I just didn't know how I was going to cope with it. But thankfully now it's not as often. Of course, there still is some whining and crying, but it doesn't happen nearly as often, and they don't last as long either. So that's always a good thing. Don't give up, and don't feel like you have to do it alone, because there are this amazing groups out there, and people like Alison especially, that love and want to help you get through and have such a better relationship. Not that you don't have a good relationship now with your children, but, you know, we can always make things better. And if there's the slightest thought that you could make things better, I say go for it and try it.